Welcome to our presentation of the 2019 Winter Reading Data. My name is Craig Hamby, and I am the Director of Elementary Education for the Lindbergh School District. This information was originally shared during the curriculum update of the February 11, 2020 Lindbergh Schools Board of Education meeting. Lindbergh's Vision for Literacy. A system of literacy instruction that is comprehensive in integrating foundational skills, the 4 C's, and enjoyment of reading to develop independent, lifelong readers and writers. This is a comprehensive system for student success, not a program, a marriage between professional learning communities, response to intervention, standards-based instruction, and personalized learning. Informed teachers are our best insurance against reading failure. While programs are very helpful tools, programs don't teach, teachers do. From Louisa Moats and the Letters program. Professional learning and training of our teachers is our most powerful tool to ensure our students' success. Professional learning is occurring and will continue to occur on explicit phonics instruction, phonemic awareness, essential skills and priority standards in Reader's Workshop, how these strategies and standards fit together for student success, intermediate level word work, and grammar. Training on all these topics and how they fit together is of extreme importance. This chart shows the dichotomy of reading. On one side we have code-based instruction, which is essential in developing foundations of reading. On the other side, we have meaning-based instruction in which students engage in ongoing learning around comprehension. We used to spend most of our time on the meaning-based side. However, through our own research and the advocacy of parents, we have recognized the need for both sides to be utilized for a complete reading program. Teachers need to recognize and respond with the appropriate strategies. Some students will need more of one side and others will thrive with strategies on the other side. Teachers need to be prepared to supply strategies from the entire chart. Our winter screenings were done in December of 2019. FastBridge benchmarks are set for late January or early February, but we want to have the screening finished and results prepared for parent-teacher conferences. In this presentation, data is pulled from EduClimber. EduClimber takes the data from FastBridge and compiles it into full district grade level charts. In this presentation, scores are presented by risk level. I will also discuss norms and benchmarks. Benchmarks measure a student's performance against a criterion or a set standard. Norms measure one student's performance against others at the same grade level. When you think of norms, think of a bell curve with a normal distribution. The 50th percentile will represent the average. Composite scores were provided in the Tyler Student Information System as national percentile scores using FastBridge norms. In the presentation, I will refer to several different assessments. The first two are strictly FastBridge assessments. Early reading, given to kindergarten and first grade, includes subtests that measure critical early reading skills of phonemic awareness and phonics. Low scores on these skills can indicate risk for reading problems, including dyslexia. A reading, given to second and third grade, is a procedure to screen the student's broad reading abilities, including foundational skills, language, reading literature, and informational reading. This is a computer adaptive test that begins at grade level. CBM is a curriculum-based measurement that is 3 reading passages administered face-to-face for 1 minute each. It measures accuracy in words per minute, which is a measure of oral reading fluency. The words per minute determine a student's score. CBM is used in many different assessment programs for measuring oral reading fluency. Winter is the first time we screen kindergarten students. The kindergarten students take the early reading English composite with 4 subtests: nonsense words, letter sounds, onset sounds, and word segmenting. Students are also given the RAN, Rapid Automatic Naming, which measures a student's ability to name colors in a quick and automatic manner. This is what measures a student's ability to retrieve information rapidly without effort. Of this year's kindergarten students on early reading, 12.5% were at high risk. This is a decrease of 24.5% from the kindergarten students screened in the winter of 2018. The first grade students take the early reading English composite with 4 subtests: nonsense words, word segmenting, sight words, and CBM. CBM starts in the winter for first grade. In the fall, students did sentence reading instead of CBM. Sentence reading breaks the passage up a sentence at a time in a picture book format, while the CBM is a 1-page reading passage. Of this year's first grade students on early reading, 14.5% were at risk. This is an increase of 3.5% from their fall scores. However, it is important to note that the benchmark increases as each screening period. It is not a static benchmark for the year. Students must grow in their ability throughout the year. When we compare this score to how this cohort of students scored in the winter of kindergarten, we see a decrease of 22.5% at the high-risk level. Not all schools gave the full early reading assessment to all students last year, so we cannot compare that score to last year's first graders. Next year, we will have year-to-year and cohort data available. We noticed that our norms scores were not aligning with fluency charts from Hattie and Rosinski, educational researchers known for visible learning and fluency respectively. What we discovered was that the norms provided by FastBridge are program norms. They are only normed with other FastBridge users. This is a group of 21,000 student samples. In statistics, the larger the sample size, the more accurate the data. We want the most accurate data for our students. Our team called Kim Stuckey, the dyslexia specialist at DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. She referred to Hasbrook and Tyndall as the gold standard of oral reading fluency norms. H&T are the norms used for multiple programs. H&T is based upon 6.5 million student samples. It provides a normal distribution of scores. We felt it wise to use the H&T norms for a comparison of our student data to the FastBridge program norms. Hasbrook and Tyndall norms are what we would be using if we had adopted Dibbles, AimsWeb, or developed our own assessment using the same task as FastBridge. This chart reflects the winter mid-year benchmarks for H&T and FastBridge. You can see that the cuts for risk levels are different, and the more accurate H&T norms give a different percentage of students in high risk. Our second grade students take 3 screening assessments: CBM, A-Reading, and Gentry Monster. Second and third grade students took the computer adaptive A-Reading assessment this year. FastBridge evidence shows that A-Reading provides a robust estimate of broad reading achievement. Last year we used auto reading for our second and third grade students. After deliberation, the testlets and auto reading seemed more appropriate for younger students. Monster is an encoding assessment outside of the FastBridge suite of assessments. Monster is a 10-word spelling test looking at spelling rules. Of our second grade students on A-Reading, 12% scored at high risk in the winter. This is a decrease of 2% from the fall assessment. We do not have cohort data. First grade takes the early reading, or year-to-year data, because auto reading was given last year to our second graders. Please note that A-Reading is a more comprehensive reading assessment. Of the second grade CBM scores, 12% of students were identified as high risk. That's an increase of 1% from the fall. Looking at a cohort comparison, we saw a 16% decrease in high risk from where these students scored last winter, and a decrease of 15% high risk compared to last year's second grade students. This chart shows the comparison of the FastBridge norms to the H&T normed risk levels. Our third grade students take 3 screening assessments: CBM, A-Reading, and the Words Their Way inventory. Third grade students took the computer adaptive A-Reading assessment this year. As mentioned earlier, FastBridge evidence shows that A-Reading provides a robust estimate of broad reading achievement. Last year we used auto reading. Words Their Way is an encoding assessment outside of FastBridge suite of assessments. Words Their Way is a 25-word spelling test looking at application of increasingly complex spelling rules. Of the third grade A-Reading scores, 9% of students were identified as high risk. That is a decrease of 3% from the fall. We do not have cohort data. Second graders took auto reading last year, or year-to-year data, as auto reading was given to the third graders last year as well. Of the third grade CBM scores, 13.5% of students were identified as high risk. That is an increase of 0.5% from the fall. Looking at cohort comparison, we saw a 13.5% decrease in high risk from where these students scored last winter as second graders, and a decrease of 5.5% high risk compared to last year's third grade students. This chart shows a comparison of FastBridge norms to the more accurate H&T normed risk levels. Teaching reading is very complex. Many strands have to come together for a successful literacy program. Our plan is to continue training teachers so that they can be responsive to the needs of their individual students. Here is a list of current and future professional learning planned for our staff.